Welcome to Mom Matters. I'm your host, Alyssa Dver, and in the next 10 easy-to-watch minutes, we're going to give you some really practical tips for productive parenting. Today's topic is Webwise, Internet Safety for Adults, and joining us is a true expert, Susan Joyce. Susan is the president of Netability, Inc., and it's a consulting company she's been running since 1995 that gives great advice to companies and individuals about safe Internet use. She's also the webmaster and the editor for a website that we're going to be talking a lot about tonight called Job Hunt. She's been in the technology area for many years, and before that you dealt with military intelligence. So a real knowledge base here of technology and information, and we're so glad that you're here, Susan.
I'm so pleased to be here, Alyssa.
Thanks for joining us. We talk all the time as parents about internet safety in our kids, and it's a topic that I do want to do more work on, but tonight we're going to talk about as adults. And we're out there surfing and placing orders all the time, and I know that there's some really scary things that grown-ups do on the internet.
Definitely.
What's the most common stuff that you see, maybe that people don't even know?
Well, a couple of the most common things are when someone posts a resume on one of the job boards, or they email it to somebody, not being very careful with the information, either where they're posting it or where they're sending it. Sometimes people are very trusting, and we worry about our kids being too trusting, but I think sometimes the grown-ups are every bit as too trusting as the kids are.
Yeah, and on that resume we put our address and our history of where we've been and who we know and our hobbies. There's a lot of data on there.
Definitely. Too much data, usually.
Okay. And what kind of things do you see happening? I mean, identity theft, or what other kind of
Well, there's identity theft. There's also, and this goes beyond resumes, but, people have, grown-ups have their own MySpace and other kinds of, Yahoo has 360 degrees, and there are a bunch of places where grown-ups can post information about themselves. And often they tend to be way too friendly with the information that they're sharing, and they end up violating their own privacy. You see somebody describing their families, pictures of the kids are up there associated with the family address, and maybe even a picture of the house. And it's great to be proud of your house and your kids, but don't share that with the world at large, because there's a lot of not nice people out there.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really careful with my dress because, as you know from our blog, I have pictures of myself and my kids. It's kind of part of what I do, and it's out there. But I'm really careful, and people often say to me, why isn't your address on things? And it's for that very reason, right? How do these things happen if people just don't know, or you don't think that they're aware that there's such bad people out there?
I think they're just not aware. They're trusting, they're assuming that everything's okay.
Yeah, because I mean, you just say you're applying for a job, you want to send a resume, you don't always think about who's on the other end.
And whether they're really an employer.
Oh, that's a good point. We're going to take a quick break, because when we come back, I want you to talk about some of these issues, how we can avoid it, what to look for on the website, and what we can do so that we never get ourselves into trouble. So we'll be right back. Hi, this is Alyssa Dver, the host from Mom Matters. I wanted to tell you about this really excellent resource for parents. It's called Parents for Parents magazine, and it's really unique for two reasons. First, it's the only magazine I know of that focuses on one parenting topic per issue. So it gets really deep in the topics, and all the articles are written for parents by parents. I highly recommend it. Check it out at www.parentsforparentsmag.com. Welcome back to Mom Matters. We're here with Susan Joyce, an expert on adult internet safety. And so the magic question, of course, Susan, is how do you avoid this from happening to you?
Well, you use what I call a cyber-safe resume. So when you put your resume out on the internet, you don't put your contact information. You might not, if you've got a job, you might really not want to put your name there either. So use an email address that's not connected to your job or connected to your home. Something like a Yahoo or Gmail or something like that. That can be sort of isolated and anonymous. Use that as the identifier. If your cell phone number isn't listed, and most of them aren't, but you can Google your cell phone number to see if it's listed, then you can use your cell phone number and your email address as the contact information on your resume, and that's really the safest thing to do.
Okay. What about when you subscribe to newsletters or even a blog, you're getting an RSS feed or something, should you be using your own personal email, or should you be using that anonymous email as you indicated?
It's really a whole lot smarter to use the more anonymous email. I mean, particularly with the email, we get so much spam. I get thousands of messages a day now.
Oh, wow. Ordering stuff online, credit card information and all, is that totally taboo in your opinion, or is it relatively safe? What do we look for to make sure it's a safe site?
You look for the form that you're completing. Check the browser and make sure there's the little closed padlock somewhere on the browser. Regardless of the kind of browser that you use, there will be a closed padlock indicating that it's secure.
Okay.
Now that's in the browser, that's not in the window.
In the website, sometimes I see it on the bottom corner.
That's right. That's usually the bottom corner of the browser frame.
Okay. Okay. But once you see that padlock, putting credit card information, your home address, stuff like that, you feel is relatively safe?
It should be safe if you're at a safe website, which is another issue. So say you see the Amazon logo and you see all the Amazon stuff that you expect, but you look up in the URL bar, and if it doesn't say Amazon.com real close to the left end of the URL, then you may not be on Amazon, and I would worry about that. There are a lot of bogus websites out there that look like legitimate ones.
I've been getting all these emails, I'm sure everybody does constantly, you know, from some bank, you know, you need to check your accounts, or your credit card information needs to be validated, and sometimes they look like legitimate emails. So how do you tell that they're not?
Well, you look for the information in the message, and the information in the message, what looks like clickable text may say, you know, bankofamerica.com, but when you click on the link, don't trust that you're going to bankofamerica.com. Look in the URL to see what is actually in the URL. I've actually got an article on Job Hunt about being smart with domains and understanding what's in the URL. If you can read a URL, you'll know what site you're on, and that's when you can be relatively sure you're where you think you are.
And never ever open an attachment or even click on a URL from somebody you don't know.
Absolutely.
Gosh, I mean, some bad virus is still going around. I don't think we'll ever get away from that, unfortunately. All right, so maybe we slip up once in a while, and you know, some of the smartest people I know have done that. What do you do at that point? How do you, deal with it?
You do the usual things with reporting to the credit agencies. You are authorized a free report every year from each credit agency. Make sure you're asking the right credit agency. And the FTC has a place where FTC.gov has a place where you can report when you think you've been scammed.
Oh, wow. And you mentioned also Googling yourself, making sure nobody's posting stuff that you don't know about you and so forth, right?
Or something as you that's not you.
Oh, goodness. So speaking of resources, we mentioned Job Hunt, and let's give that URL because it's tricky. It's
job-hunt.org.
Great resource. And it's a website, again, that Susan is the webmaster and editor. It tells you all kinds of great tips about how to safely look for and apply for jobs online. It is not necessarily a job database on its own. It's really a resource of knowledge, which is fantastic. Other resources people should be aware of.
I strongly recommend consumerreports.com. It's a great site, a lot of excellent information on Consumer Reports. You can always check the government website. Consumer Reports has a lot of easily understood information, though well organized.
Super. I want to thank you for being on our show today, for sure. Thanks so much, Susan. And I want to tell our viewers about our blog. If you haven't been there already, please check it out. The URL is going to be running down below me just now. And there you're going to find information on our previous shows as well as some upcoming shows. I want to thank you for joining us today on Mom Matters. I'm your host, Alyssa Dver, where we're giving you practical tips for more productive parenting.